I think I'm live on YouTube. I'll just get my TikTok going. I have to do YouTube first because it sometimes just doesn't connect up for some reason. And I have to start from scratch. And I don't want to keep my TikTok people waiting because they're my big audience, right? Okay. There we go. Let's get this set up. Setting up for notes here. This is a parenting Q&A. If you're interested, I do sometimes look down at YouTube, but my audience is on TikTok. You're probably from TikTok, so anyway. But if you have any questions, you can post them on YouTube if you'd like, and I should look at that every so often. And okay, hello. I don't recognize many familiar names here. Trying to memorize a bunch of your names. Money Mike, you've been on here before, haven't you, Money Mike? Okay. Before we get going, I just want to know where you're from. I always find that fascinating. And I'm here in Vancouver, Canada. So just curious. It looks like it could rain today. I had a scary incident on my bike yesterday. The fender got caught up in the front wheel and I just about tumbled off the front. Luckily, I wasn't going very fast. But yeah, some guy had adjusted my bike and really unfortunate. But anyway. And you got to be careful when people are touching your bike. Do a very good inspection afterwards. Not something I would have looked for, though. Anyway. That wasn't yesterday. That was Sunday. Today's Tuesday. I'm all mixed up. So where are you from? Says I've only got 3 people here, but a whole bunch of people have joined. So it's just going to take a second to catch up. I usually wait till I get, I don't know, but maybe 100 people before I get going. So in the meantime, I'm always fascinated to hear where you're from. The reason I'm leaning in is this is my YouTube mic. It just sounds so much better than the computer one. But the phones are great. It's got great, hi Colorado. It's got great camera and microphone. These iPhones are just great, aren't they? I guess all phones are great these days. So where are you from while we're waiting? I did a late night one last night. I looked so awful in it. It was just dark and everything and creepy looking. So I deleted that one off of YouTube. But it was a good one. Too bad, good information, but it was so ghastly looking that I can't even keep that up there. I know I'm not on here for my looks, but still. Lansdale, Pennsylvania. That's Pennsylvania, right? PA. Oh, shoot. PA. I just had that the other day and I went, oh, right. That's what that is. And then I forgot. What's PA? I do this every time. PA, Tacoma, Washington. Hi, neighbor. PA. Is it the... What's PA? Shoot. I do this every single time. Sorry about that. I know. PA. Pennsylvania. Oh. And yet I already said Pennsylvania somewhere else, didn't I? Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me. Anyway, I had a really dopey one last night. I made a lot of mistakes last night, just dopey. Watching from west of Ireland. Hi, west of Ireland. I grew up, I was adopted. I was told mistakenly that I was half Irish. They got that wrong. And so I always grew up with a little bit of the Irish in me. Not Irish at all. So, but I still feel Irish, for the first 55 years of my life, I thought I was half Irish. Okay, so I'll get going. Jessica, I'm so grateful for you too. I'm here because you guys keep turning up and I know I'm helping you because you keep telling me in emails. So that's why I keep turning up. And I love doing this. This is relaxing for me. So what am I going to say? Oh yeah. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you go on my website, it's bratbusters.com. You can hire me for coaching, buy one of my courses, or download my free behavior board. My big course is out now. It's a 5-week course teaching you how to be a leader, and it's all paced out 5 weeks. It also has group coaching in it. That's on my website. It's between the ages of 3 and 12 with your kids. The toddler talk, which I've been talking about, should be coming out tomorrow. So if you want to know more about that, you can just wait for tomorrow. It should be out, and I'll announce it then. Okay, so let's get going with your parenting questions. I saw one already. Okay. 14-year-old is hard to trust. Every time we give her a chance, she makes the same mistakes. Yeah, you got to work on bonding with her. And I know exactly what you're saying. So we hand her trust on a silver platter, hoping she'll rise up to the trust, right? And she never does, right? So you got to work on your bonding with her. Get your leadership skills so cemented in place that she'd be embarrassed to lie to you or to do something. It's tricky though. It's very, very tricky with teenagers. They're actually my favorite age. If you want to work with me, you'll go on my website. It's bratbusters.com. That would be 5 sessions with teenagers. Okay. Oh, and sessions are all done on Zoom. So they used to be Skype. Remember that beep, 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 and no one knew how to use it. And then the pandemic hit. All of a sudden, everyone knows how to Zoom. It's been great for my business because I don't have to tell anyone how to use Zoom. Okay, how do you get a 3-year-old to stop throwing things? You put on the behavior board, it starts at the age of 3, you say, no throwing things, and then there's a consequence whenever they do. That's how you operate. You put a rule and a consequence when they do it. My nephew bullying my son, how do I address it? Good luck with that. I never addressed anything. I never told other people how to parent. Well, I'm doing that with you're soliciting my advice here, but I never offered unsolicited advice ever. And even then, sometimes friends would ask my advice, and I was very careful how I handed it out. So yeah, I can't help you with that. I don't know. It's awkward. You're dealing with probably a very defensive parent there. If they're not correcting it, they're going to be very defensive about it. So good luck with that one. Yeah, I can't tell you how to tell someone else how to parent, and I don't deal with other people's kids if their parents are there. If I'm in charge of them, yeah, I would do something, but not when the parents are around. You got a 4-year-old runner, preschooler. Oh, thanks for calling a 4-year-old a preschooler. Some people still call them toddlers. Toddlers are 1 to 2-year-olds. Preschoolers are 3 to 4. But when I do my toddler talk, that would be probably 1 to 3 or baby to 3. Because they're sort of on the cusp at that point. But anyway, that'll be out tomorrow. But preschooler, runner, put them on a leash, a harness, a restraint, and make them earn their freedom. You go somewhere safe and let them off and say, if you don't, if you run off, you'll be put back on. Clip them back in for the rest of that outing. They have to learn their freedom. That's a safety issue. It's like buckling them into a car seat. You want to keep them alive. You don't want them running in front of a bus. It's a life and death safety issue. That's the way I view that. I take that really seriously. There's 4 things that some kids are just going to do and other kids never do. Some of them do 1 or 2 of them, but there's 4 things. Why did I offer that number and I might not get them all? 1 is running, so they'll run away from you. 1 is climbing, 1 is tantrums, and the other one is sugar. Oh, hitting and biting and being aggressive. So those are 4 things that some of them just do, some of them never do, some of them do 1 or 2, or so, but yeah, runner. They're frustrating, but I think the most frustrating one of all of them is climbing. Because that's kind of the hardest one to manage. If they're climbers, they might climb a tree when they start to get older and fall out of a tree. It's the scariest one for me. I'll tell you this story. I've told it many, many times. One of my clients just had this horrific experience. Well, looking back, it was funny, but at the time it was scary. She couldn't find her 18-month-old, I think it was a little boy, I can't remember, 18-month-old, looked all over the house for him and could not find him. And she was just about to call the police, even though there was all the doors and windows were shut. She thought someone must have come in, grabbed him, and then shut the door behind him. Like she was that, it was that bad. Anyway, so she was in the kitchen and heard giggling and looked up. This kid had climbed onto the top of the fridge. And she just didn't even think to look up there. He had he'd pulled out the drawers, used them like a pyramid, and climbed up all the drawers. And then on the bench and on the counter, in Australia they call it a bench, climbed on the counter, then on the bread maker, then on the fridge. Now imagine if that kid had fallen off and landed on their head. So yeah, climbing to me is the scariest one. Because you can't restrain them from climbing all the time, but you can restrain them from running. Any advice for getting a toddler to stop saying what after every single thing you say? Just ignore it. I would. Okay. Yeah, stranger danger. Do they still use that term? Because most kids are abused by someone they know. So it's rarely a stranger. Anyway, I talk a lot about, I don't discuss that so much on here. I've got a course on that. Do I? No, it's in my course for 3 to 12-year-olds. I talk a lot about that. It's just about safety, how to keep them safe. generally what you do is you teach them about their body parts, and then if anyone else talks about their body parts, shows them their body parts, asks about theirs. So they groom them first. They don't usually just touch them. They groom them, they flash them, and you talk to your kids about all this. Information might, I'd rather scare my kids a little bit than have them touched by a freak. So I never shied away from scaring my kids about all this stuff. So yeah. And it didn't bother, they grew up hearing all this stuff all the time. So, and I used to give them permission to say no. Because sometimes you always say to toddlers or little ones, now you be polite to adults. Well, not always, right? It's okay to say no if they talk about your private parts. You say no, and then you tell me there's no secrets. They'll always say you never tell. If you tell, I'll kill your dog, I'll kill your whole family. They talk like that. That's because I've worked with tons of abused kids. So yeah, this is how they're groomed. And it's often an older sibling too. If your kid goes for a play date, you make sure you know that family. A lot of the kids I've worked with it's been an older sibling in the house, or an older cousin, or a neighbor pops by, or, make sure those parents are on the ball. Make sure you really trust those parents. I never let my kids go everywhere. I was very cautious with my kids, with safety, for sure. I remember once it was grade 1, I think. And there was this little girl. It's a horrible thing to say, but she kind of creeped out the other kids. She was a bit odd and inappropriate. And she came from a very rough family. And she invited the whole class to her birthday party. And I didn't want her to go, my daughter did, but the whole class, and I talked to some other moms about it, and they said, yeah, they'll all be there. It should be okay. But I knew I was the most safety conscious. So I did drop my daughter off. And when I saw what the house was like and the parents there, it was a rough crowd. You know what I mean? Like just a rough crowd. And so just not what I was comfortable with. And so I hid in the bushes during the party to keep an eye on her. And weird things, like in their bathroom, the door had broken. So there was no door on the bathroom. She had to pee in front of everybody. Like it was not good. I should have just taken her out of there, but all the other kids were there. I was the only mom hiding in the bushes, but that was my spidey sense. I ignored it, and I should have kept her away from that party. I regretted it, but she was fine. I kept it, whatever. Ugh, I just got the shivers thinking about it. Trust your instincts. That's what I'm saying. I'd rather be rude to people than do something like that again. I felt rude. I felt sorry for this little girl because she had no friends, and I felt sorry for her. That's why I let my daughter go, and I was not comfortable with that at all. Okay. How do I get my 17-year-old daughter to do things she needs to do, shower, do school? Yeah, you know how many teenagers aren't into hygiene? It's really common. So anyway, just have it down, have a consequence. You have to shower every day. If you don't, there's a consequence. So yeah, but you got to start slow. With a 17-year-old, it's almost always coaching, one-on-one coaching with me if you're interested. The thing is, you got to bond with her first. You got to get the trust going. You got to get that. You just got to bond with her first. The first 2 weeks with teenagers is just bonding. We use the behavior board as a bonding board to get closer to her. And then by the 3rd week, then we might address the shower. But you got to work on your leadership stuff first, your calm leadership. You got to build up your relationship with her first before you discipline. So yeah, it's almost always coaching with teenage stuff. And you can understand that, right? It's a big deal. They're just harder to deal with because they're more developed. They're smarter than you too. They haven't lost brain cells. Half my brain's gone. I'm 62. Half my brain's dead by now, I'm sure. But when I was young, I remember being a real whip. Like I was very quick, and now I'm like, so they're really clever and they're very quick when they're teenagers. So you never try and outsmart them is what I'm saying, because you can't. Should I give my 2-year-old stuff when he's screaming and throw a fit, or should I make him stop first? You don't make him stop. You just wait till it's over. And then once he's calmed down, then you can give him that. But yeah, there's no way I would hand over something to a screaming toddler. I have a climber, it gets easier, he's nearly 3. Yeah, because they understand consequences. Wait a minute, if I fall, it might hurt. They don't understand concussions and emergency rooms usually, but they can understand pain. By the time they're 3, they start to get some common sense. That's why I always say under 3, you don't use the behavior board, because they're just toddlers. They're brand new, fresh human beings. They've got like one marble and some tumbleweed floating around in there. You can't reason with them. Leaving, I'm gonna leave. Alrighty. Don't know what that question's all about. Okay. Hmm. Okay. My 14-year-old seems to never learn a lesson no matter how many times she gets a consequence. You're missing something. You're just doing it wrong. Like, this is what a lot of parents do. If you don't do this, I'll do that. Or if you do that, this will happen. It kind of isn't that way with teenagers. It's a little bit different. You got to go around other different ways around it. So you cut deals with them, you negotiate with them, but you don't threaten. It's sort of, oh God, it's so hard to explain because there's no standard with teenagers. Every single client I have, and I specialize in teenagers, they're my favorite age, but every single client, the advice is extremely different for every single client. It's rarely anywhere near the same. So I can't generalize. I can't give you a general answer. I need to know what kind of parent you are. What's your relationship with your child? What's their social life like? I need to know a whole bunch of stuff before I can really give you any advice. So that's coaching, one-on-one coaching if you're interested. Okay. How long do you keep the toys in the rotation system? Okay. I talk about the toy rotation system a lot because I love it. I'm more minimal and organized, and I like kids to learn how to focus. When they've got all their toys out at once, they can't focus. They tend to get those kids tend to say I'm bored more than the kids who have a toy rotation system going because they're overstimulated. You think about it this way: when kids go to school, they don't throw everything in the middle of the room and say have at it, do they? They have routines, they have schedules, they have activity time, and that's sort of the way I ran my household too. So they only had like 5 toys out at any given time, and then they had the rest put away. So I would just wait until they asked, but it could never be more than a week or under a week. Like they couldn't ask every day. It had to be like, well, it hasn't been a week yet. You can ask, on Sunday. So let's say every Sunday you say we can do it, but don't offer. Wait until they ask. My kids would go about 3 months before they'd ask. But none of the big stuff was put away. I never put away the Lego or the books or the PlayStation. None of the big stuff was put away. But that stuff couldn't all be pulled out at once. It had to be, okay, so if you want to do that, then you have to put that away. But I would have activities out in the living room, which we didn't use that often. So in the living room, I'd lay out like a big mat and they would have all the Legos set up there and they could leave that there for a week or two. But once they stopped playing with it, then it got put away. But yeah, I just had systems in place. So whenever they ask for it, but it has to be at least a week. Okay. How long should you wait for the tantrum to cool off? As long as it takes. But yeah, they will eventually learn. Generally, the longer they go, it means that you have fed it before. It means they keep going because they know you're going to give in eventually. So they'll just keep going. I think the longest hardcore tantrum I ever heard of, and it was an older kid. And I said to the parents, you're going to have to go do this. You're going to have to go through with this because this kid at this point was so in charge with those parents. They were distraught. It was a real, I can't go into great detail because it's clients, but anyway, it was a bad situation. This kid was older, 6 or something, and he had the longest tantrum I ever heard of. I think it was 4 to 5 hours. And I mean, vomiting, just about passing out. He would do anything to get his own way. When he wanted something, he went for hours. And the parents, they said that was the last big tantrum he ever had. And they did it. They had to go through with it. But it depends on what's going on. If you're meeting their needs and managing their wants, the tantrum is managing their wants. The tantrum is just they didn't get what they wanted, when they wanted, and how they wanted it. That's all. Tantrums are just a loss of control. They're not getting their own way. It's okay to ignore that. It's actually optimal to ignore that crap. You do not want them to be having tantrums when they're 35 years old. Like that's what that leads to if you give it any attention at all. Yeah, just wait it out. But you got to make sure you're meeting their needs. Okay, so do they get a lot of affection, a lot of attention? So it's okay to ignore a tantrum if you're already meeting their needs. I get a lot of flack from this, and it's my favorite thing to talk about because I know it pulls out. I get a lot of hate on this, which means I'm still relevant. I'm still shaking things up. Anyway, the ignoring the tantrums, what people will say was you're damaging, you're not validating their feelings. If your child and your relationship with your child is so fragile that you're going to damage them by ignoring a tantrum, you got bigger fish to fry. Something else, you got some big stuff going on there. Because there's no way a healthy relationship with a child could not withstand that. They just learned this ain't working, I may as well be good. They just learn to stop having tantrums by when you ignore them. So just make sure you're meeting their needs. My 4-year-old says, I'm going to leave when she doesn't get her way. Well, see ya. Like, I don't know what you mean by that. Are you out in public? Um, does it matter? Like, how is she holding that over you? How is she physically holding that over you? Is she taking the car keys and driving down the driveway? I mean, what do you mean? Leave? Fine. See you later. Like, she can go to her room or whatever. I could care less. Okay, 4-year-old bites and tries choking his siblings. How can I stop this? That's a coaching issue. If he's 4 years old and he's still doing that, you want to work with me. I can't solve that in here. I would say that would probably be 3 sessions. If he's 4, it's because of the age. If he was 2, no. At 4, yeah, you got other stuff going on. That would not happen if you don't have other stuff going on, guaranteed. That it hurts your feelings. Is it normal for them to say things they don't mean? Oh, that it hurts your feelings? Oh God, no, I would never say that. So if a kid's not getting their own way and they say, I hate you, and then I would never say that hurts my feelings. Not in a million trillion years would I ever say that. Never. If they say, I hate you, you're awful, you're mean, this would be me. Whatever. And then I just ignore it. It shuts them down. When you say you hurt my feelings, they just won. There's no way I would give into that. It's just manipulation. That's all it is. Do not feed that. My 4-year-old son runs into his room and upset and says he wants to be alone. Aren't you lucky? So you got an upset 4-year-old. He's mad because he didn't get his own way, and he gets out of your hair. Boy, you're lucky. How many parents would love that? You go. See ya. I wouldn't say it like that because that's sarcastic, but yeah. How often do you do lives? I'm on here every day. I did 2 of them yesterday. I did one last night, and I record them all on YouTube. On YouTube, it was so dark when I was doing it last night, and the lighting for YouTube, I have a light that went out. You should have seen how creepy I looked. All the shadows were all wrong. I had to delete it. It was so bad, but it was good content. I was really mad. Yeah, I'm on here every day. I've been doing these lives now every day for a year. My very first one, I have another channel too. It's just my personal old lady one. I talk about, I'm really into health and fitness. So, and sewing, stupid, it's just boring. But anyway, it's more just for me, like a journal. And so I was on there. I was on the wrong channel, and I was starting my very first live for my Bratbusters one. And I'm talking about I hardly have any followers over there. And a few people were tuned in. They said, why are you talking about kids? What are you doing? I was on the wrong one. I've done that again too. And then some people follow me over there and here, and they said, you're on the other one. You're not on Bratbusters. So they told me right away. That's how I'm dopey sometimes. Okay. This is helping me understand what my parents missed parenting me. You know, every parent does the best they know how. Not necessarily the best they can, because I can teach them how to do the best they can, but they do the best they know how. No parent is handed a newborn in the hospital and does this. I'm going to mess you up. You know, like they all do the best that they know how. So, yeah. I don't talk about nieces or nephews. I only talk to parents, because if I gave you advice and the parents didn't like it, you see, I only teach parenting. I stay in my lane. I'm very careful about that. My son is 3 in October, and so he's just a toddler, and is starting to say no to everything, and now hates cuddles from his dad. That's okay. It's just a stage. Toddlers go through stage after stage after stage after stage, but just ignore the no. If he says no to everything, just ignore it. Someone says, help. Oh, that was the same one. Do you ignore the tantrums in public the same way? Yes, so long as they're not disturbing other people. If it's in a restaurant, there's no way I would be rude enough to put other restaurant people through that. I would take them out to the parking lot and then let them have the tantrum there. I'll tell you one of my favorite stories. I tell this one a lot. It was one of my sons. I think it was the second to last tantrum. He had tantrums. My daughter never did. They're just born to have them, or they don't. So anyway, he had a tantrum, and it was a very busy, loud mall. So I let him have the tantrum in the mall. Anyway, I just pulled him over, and it wasn't a horrendous one, because he was kind of petering out, because he knew they ain't working with mom. He was more likely to have one with dad. But anyway, so But anyway, so I pulled him off to the side, get him away from the stairs so he wouldn't fall. But you know, when they're having a tantrum, you almost feel like kicking them down the stairs. Anyway, just being honest here. I didn't do it. But anyway, so I pulled him off to the side and then I pull out my nail file and I'm just waiting, waiting, waiting. While I'm waiting, these young moms walking by, oh, you should give him a hug, talk about his feelings. I'm like, oh God, give me a break. Keep going, keep going. Because I had tons of experience with kids already, right? Before I had my own. Anyway, but all these grandmothers and parents with moms with older kids kept coming up to me. Good on you. You know what you're doing. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. So they understood. They've got experience. You want to listen to that. You listen to that experience. They've been through it. But anyway, yeah, what a pain in the butt he was with those tantrums. I'm like, what's wrong with you? I never had a tantrum. My daughter never had one. I just don't even understand it. I can't. I remember being little and looking at other kids having tantrums. I remember thinking, I was probably about 2, and I remember thinking, how embarrassing. I can literally remember that. My daughter was the same. She used to look at kids having tantrums and look at me like, what's going on? Like you're either born to have them or you're not. It's just a loss of control of your emotions. That's all it is. The way to train them out of that is you never feed it with any attention. They eventually learn how to self-regulate. You cannot teach someone how to self-regulate. It's impossible. This is how you do it. You're exhibiting calm behavior. As soon as he was finished, I said, you all done? Let's get going. I would never discuss that tantrum. Never. I don't give it any attention before, during, or after, ever. So yeah, we just walk off, and then he only had one more tantrum. And that one wasn't even that bad. He's had some whoppers, but that one wasn't one of them. Almost 3-year-old says shh and points right in my face. I just ignore. Is that okay? No, I wouldn't ignore that. Yeah, that's a next level thing. He's 2. He's not quite 3. But still, I would say, I would take his hand and I would say no, and then I would walk away. Like, and not walk away like leave the house, but you just walk and just do the normal stuff as if it had no effect on you. But you're pointing that out. What to do about other people grabbing your toddler without permission? I don't know what you mean by that. Like strangers? I'd call the police. I have no idea who you're talking about. Years ago, well, obviously my son's 33 now. He was 5, 6 months old, tiny. And I was holding him and I was in a supermarket. And, oh no, he was he would have been maybe a bit older. He was sitting up, maybe 8 months old. And he was sitting up in the shopping cart. And there was this old guy that came over to him and he went to grab his cheeks like this. I don't want some old creep. He wasn't even that creepy, but I don't want some stranger touching my baby's face, you know? So I said, no, I said, don't touch my baby. And he goes, well, aren't you uptight? He's going to turn into a very, very unfriendly little boy. And he went to pinch his cheeks again. And I said, get away or I'm going to call the police. And I yelled it. And anyway, he ran like you wouldn't believe. He took off. Evidently, he was always trying to touch babies. He was a pedophile. And he was always trying to, get in with the mom. And, he was a creep. But yeah, I never would apologize. There's no freaking way anyone was going to touch my kid. So, but yeah, and when I yelled it, and then later on, all the staff came around and they were all like, oh, good for you. This is in Australia. They don't like confrontation in Australia. Well, I'm Canadian. I don't mind being loud. So yeah, they were all, oh, thank you. And and then they said later on, they never saw him again. So, but yeah, I called it out. I think I said something about pedophile too. I mean, I was like, do you want me to report you? Anyways, if someone's grabbing your toddler, I would not put up with that. If it's someone like that, no way. Okay, my 3-year-old says no to everything, but he only knows a few words. They only keep repeating stuff if it's working, if it's getting attention. I would just ignore it. And then he's in speech therapy. Yeah, lots of kids don't talk or walk or whatever till they're 2, 3 years old. It's not that uncommon. But don't go by me. I'm not saying it's completely fine. I don't know, someone I know who's like older than me now. But anyway, they didn't walk or talk till they were 3 years old, and then just got up and ran and talked a milestone. Like they just weren't interested. She had a younger brother who she'd just point. He was 2 years younger. She would point. He was hyper. He was racing around talking all the time. She would just point and he would get her whatever she wanted. So she never had to move. She's still a very laid back person. Just not in any rush, Nothing wrong with her, just not in any rush. So I'm not saying that if that is normal or isn't, but it's certainly not uncommon that happens, Suggestions for kids who have negative self-talk. How old? Like 2 or 12? Like, I would intervene in that like that. That's enough of that. I don't want to hear that. I would even have a consequence for that. And I'd work on that. Something going on there. I would work on that. But yeah, I say, I don't want to hear that. I hate that people always want to touch my baby. Yeah, that was the only person who ever came near my kids, I'll tell you. I was like, yeah, close enough. Stuff like I'm not good at anything. How old though? 8. Okay, not good at anything. Low self-esteem. Usually when you're a good leader, they usually have very high self-esteem. It's just the way it is because you're really good at listening and all that stuff and building them up. That's what this is all about. You want them to have high self-esteem and I don't know what's going on there. I would have to assess that. Sorry about that, but I would have to assess why an 8-year-old is doing that negative self-talk. You'd have to hire me for that. So if you want my help with that, I have to assess it first. I don't know what's going on there. 10-year-old with low self-esteem, how can I build it up? Again, you're going to have to hire me. I don't know why they have low self-esteem. I need to assess that. I need to figure out and do some investigation. Why is their self-esteem low? Generally, kids who have a leader as a parent have high self-esteem. Leadership guides them into having a lot of confidence. Yeah, teenage years, that can throw them off again. I mean, that's, teen years are challenging. But yeah, when they're young, yeah. So yeah, if you want my help, you have to hire me for that because I need to assess the situation and do some investigating. Because I want to find out what's going on there. So build him up more, but not during I don't know what's going on though. I can't say. So it could be something external, could be something at school. You'd have to assess that, figure those ways of getting information out of them. I do that all the time with kids. I don't do it, but I teach parents how to do that. So you have to assess the situation. You just have to assess it. Yeah, she says I'm stupid and I say, no, you're smart. It's not helping. Like there's something else going on. Just denying it is something else going on. Yeah, you can't say, no, you're not, you're smart. What is making her feel stupid in the first place is what we have to get to the source of that. So you're putting a Band-Aid on it. It's not going to help. Sorry, but you're not doing the bad. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just not the cure to this. It's just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. We got to figure out where's that sore coming from. Okay, but like I said, you have to hire me for that because I have to. Lots of things I can answer quickly on here, but some stuff I just can't. I need context around it. How to respond to my 2-year-old when he asked for data, but dad moved away. I would get something, it's a 2-year-old. Okay, I would get something like, dad moved away. Well, I don't know what's going on there. Do you want to keep dad in his life and his memory? What I mean is, how close do you want him to feel to dad if he's never going to see him again potentially? Or he's just moved away and he'll see him on holidays? So that's kind of awkward for me to answer that because do you want to keep him in his a daily life a certain way? I don't even want to tell you how I'd suggest that in case he's moved away and he's never going to see him again, because then you don't want to upset him. Anyway. It's hard for me when you do continuation comments because I get dizzy when I scroll backwards. I'm old, I get vertigo. When you get old, you start to lose your balance. Parenting is 100% on us. Yes, when they're teenagers, they're more influenced by the outside because you're not their leader so much anymore. They sort of take over that role. You're there as backup for the big stuff. That's the way I look at it. I didn't want to be their leader when they're teenagers. That's ridiculous. They're going to be adults soon. You want them to be their own leader. So that's when they're more influenced by other people. But up to the age of about 9, 10, 11, it's all on you. Their behavior is all on you. Because when you're a really good leader, you are the most important person in their whole life. And they're very influenced by you. But yeah, once they start, the hormones start kicking in, that's when everything starts to change. And their basic personality, they're born with. Their basic nature, their basic personality, they're born with. But their behavior is all on you. How they act, what they say, what they do, how they treat people, that's all 100% on you. 100%. With teenagers too, I don't like to say that I have my reasons for not wanting to talk about it, but you still have a lot more control than you think you do if you're doing it well, because they really don't want to disappoint you. I really hated disappointing my mother. And like it would have really upset me to see this look on her face. Like it would have killed me. And I know my kids were like that with me too. My mom was my leader and she was my best friend. I told her everything. And my kids, they told me everything. And so you do have a lot more control than you think. The reason why I don't like to go on about that is I know parents who don't feel bad. So, but you can get it. You have to hire me for that because it's so personal. It's a lot of, I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I have no qualifications. I just have 51 years of experience with kids that they taught me everything. But my clients will tell you about 50% of my job with teenagers, if not more, is counseling the parents, their own feelings, their own emotions, what they're going through. I have to take all that in consideration because they're in pain sometimes, especially when it's crisis work. Anyway, I won't go on too much about that. Okay. 3-year-old thinks it's funny when getting disciplined. How do I get him to take me more serious? Well, you're just not quite doing it right. I don't know what you're doing there, but yeah, if he, and by the way, he probably doesn't think it's funny. It's more that, that little snotty kind of, it's back talk. That's that sassy laugh. So yeah, I don't really think he thinks it's funny, but yeah, you're missing something there. If you want my help, again, you have to hire me. I don't know what you're doing. Are you on the behavior board? Are you using that? Because that helps you to get organized with all this stuff. You said, I don't want to take away that confidence, but there needs to be a line. What confidence? I'm going to try and scroll backwards, but I get dizzy. Oh, I see. My 4-year-old is very confident and wants to talk, play with anyone we see at the park, out for a walk. Yeah, what's wrong with that? If you're right there, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, that wouldn't bother me at all. They're never out unsupervised. So, right? And by the way, I'm very big on information. Information is power, and I have never shied away from scaring my kids a little bit to keep them safe. So I knew someone years ago, shouldn't probably say who it was, but anyway, I can't even say the situation. It was someone in my personal life, and we both had little girls, like 8 or 9 years old they were at the time. And her little girl knew nothing about sex, private parts, nothing. She goes, I want to keep her sweet and innocent. And I said, nothing will rip her to shreds that innocent will rip it to shreds than being touched by a freak. And she was horrified. She just didn't want to tell her daughter anything. She goes, I want her to stay completely innocent. And I thought, yeah, you're not doing her any favor, and it doesn't mess them up. The only thing that does mess them up is being touched by a freak, right? So information is power. I told my kids everything, age appropriate. They heard, but they didn't think anything of it. They were just used to mom talking about everything. And I never had the talk. It would just come up. I'd see a young girl walking down the street with a really low cut top. There's another conversation. You see, she's not giving permission to be attacked, but she's more likely to be attacked than a young girl who was more covered up. You see, it's sort of young boys or men can take that as an invitation. It's not. They still, you see, I always have these talks with my kids. So it's how you present yourself too is a big part of it. That was off topic. I was just going away with, I was flying with that comment. 1-year-old hitting, yeah, they're going to do that. They're just babies, right? So I do have a course on that. Sold a whole bunch of those yesterday. I don't know why. They're just mini courses. I don't know why. I don't remember even saying anything about that. I don't know what happened. Anyway, I do have a little mini course on that, toddlers who hit, and you might want to check that out. 10-year-olds hates his own anger, says there's something wrong with him because he can't control it. Well, I don't know. It's pretty normal to have a lot of anger. My son had tantrums when he was little. And then as he got older, he'd still often, because it's a temper. It turns into an adult temper too, but you got to teach them how to manage it. And I said, sweetie, there's nothing wrong with being angry. There's nothing wrong with that. But go and scream into a pillow or punch a pillow. And I think he did it a couple times, whatever. So don't try and say it's not okay to have anger. Just give them somewhere to, wear off steam. Get them into sports or get them a punching bag or something. So it's not that the anger is the problem. You just got to help them manage it. What if you have a teenager that's lonely? Yeah, geez, there's a whole bunch of those. Do you like the idea of a punching bag? I don't love it, but if he's got a lot of anger and he is inclined to punch, yeah, I'd get a punching bag rather than letting him hit someone else. I'm not huge on it though. You know why? Because you know, you really want to teach them how to fight kind of thing. But anyway, teenager that's lonely. Yeah, that's a tricky one. I always say spread your kids as much as spread them thin as much as possible. So have them out doing as many different things as possible. I would get my teenager into volunteer work or something if they just sat around, they were really lonely. Get them doing volunteer work, get them out there helping other people. So spread them out as much as possible because they're more likely to meet people that way. School is actually a very small world. It's a very small pool to pull from, and it's very cliquey. So this is this group of friends, that group of friends, that group of friends. I remember pulling away, I was probably in grade 8, pulling away from the wilder kids, and I went through like a real rough time because I had no friends. People associated me with that wilder crowd, but they were the crowd I grew up with. They went wild, I went another way, you know, like it was awkward. But yeah, it's teenage, that could be a rough time. Big brothers, big sisters. Well, I was going to be a big sister years and years ago. And I ended up volunteering in a hospital for severely disabled children instead because the fathers were coming on to me. And it's very awkward. I was young, 20. I was pretty when I was young, you know, as you are when you're young. And yeah, they had to kick me out because all those single dads were coming on to me. So I had a really bad experience with it. I said, can't we just exchange the kids some other way where they're dropped off somewhere and you know, I never had to see the dad, but yeah, so that didn't work out for me. Not even sure if you answered my question. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't go back. They come and they flip and then I answer what's in front of me. So what about kids who hurt other kids and think it's funny? I don't know how old they are. Are they 16, 6, 2? I need an age. How can I help my 3-week-old who's overly fussy and has days and nights mixed up? I need advice. 3-week-old, go with it. Go with the flow. Mom and babe are healthy and happy, and that's all that matters. You stay up all night if you have to, and then eventually try and, you know, you can feed them at night and then try and get them off to sleep. Be really, really, really boring in the middle of the night, so you're not, you know, talking to them or anything. That's what I did with my kids. I just was very boring in the middle of the night, not on purpose. It just happened. You're just sitting there like this. You feed them, and then luckily my kids were really fast feeders. My son was like 3 minutes on each side, and he was full. And my daughter was. They couldn't latch on initially. I had to use those things. Can't remember what they're called. Anyway, but then when they did latch on, holy moly, they were fast feeders. And then they would just kind of go off to sleep, but they'd want to play for a while, and I just never played with them in the middle of the night. 3 weeks is still pretty young for that. That's more 4 to 5, 6 weeks where you can start sort of doing that more. Just go with it. That's just part of having a newbie. I find myself feeling more confident after I listen to you. You're my leader. Oh, thanks so much for that. I put a lot into these because I get so many beautiful emails telling parents telling me how much I've helped them. And so yeah, that's, how can you not enjoy this, right? When you're helping people. I used to do a lot of volunteer work and I don't really do any anymore. And so this is sort of like, I don't get paid for this. So it's sort of putting myself, I have to be giving something away. I just have to. So this is it. And I also do a lot of sewing for charities. But yeah, this is my time where I'm not paid for it. I just love, you know, helping people. It's wonderful. Examples of leadership. One of my best examples for leadership is the allowance system that I have set up. If you look at that, you look up Bratbusters allowance. And there's one called allowance versus chores. I think that's a really popular one. I might have even put that near the top. It was so popular. Anyway, look that up. I have a whole system, and you're the leader of that. You're the bank. I called myself Mom's Bank, and I kept all their allowance in a book. And I put down the date every Saturday. I gave them allowance, and I go date, description, debit, credit, balance, and then I gave them 10% interest. And by the time they were teenagers, I owed them thousands of dollars. I had never put that money aside. I was a single mom, and I had to pay up big time, because they were really good savers. But yeah, it's a really good leadership skill, because every week you're discussing money, and when they're teenagers, they're still going to come running to get the money, right? They had to be with me. I didn't write it down unless they were with me. So we wrote it down. Then we just talk, and you know, it was just great. So that's a really easy way of just assessing your leadership, because you're in charge of something that's really positive and you're giving them something. Anyway, advice on camping. Any tips on camping with kids? I never camped, so no. Absolutely. I'm the wrong person to ask. We used to stay in fancy hotels. uh, Yeah, everything was done for us. I don't know how to rough it. But I do know how to clean a hotel room. I'm very fussy, so the only time I use those disposable wipes, I take those traveling, and every surface is touched. So I know how to clean a hotel room, except the floors. How on earth people survive with carpeted hotel rooms, I do not know. Having a baby in a carpeted hotel room, oh, revolting. All the germs and disgusting stuff in those I hate carpeting. Anyway. Do you know anything about intrusive thoughts with kids? I do and I don't. In that I've worked with kids who've had them, but I don't quite get what it means. Like, I've worked with parents who have kids with intrusive thoughts, but I still don't really know what it means. It's not a medical diagnosis as far as I know. But yeah, I have definitely worked with kids with intrusive thoughts. But like I said, plus I have no qualifications, so I can't assess that kind of stuff, but I definitely have worked with kids with some very unusual thoughts. Okay, may have said this before, but your way of parenting reminds me so much of my mom, Angelica. Yeah, I remember that. My BFF to this day too. Yeah, my daughter and I are best friends too, and my mom and I were best friends. My mom died in my arms when I was 55, and my daughter was 21. So it was like passing the torch. It's a little bit different. I used to whine to my mom. I don't whine to my daughter. Sometimes I do, but it's more rare. It's more the other way, right? So, but yeah, you're lucky when you get that. I always wanted girls. Not for growing up, but later on. And I actually lucked out. I got one of each. I got a boy and a girl. So I think that's kind of like, I felt very lucky to have both. But I know it's just different in adulthood. My son and I aren't hanging out at the gym every day. And, it's just different, right? We're not talking about everything. And, but yeah, girls, I wanted a best friend. I wanted what I had with my mom is what I wanted. And I got it. I was very lucky. I remember when my son was born, I just always pictured myself with girls for some reason. It's not that I didn't want a boy, I just saw myself with girls. When my son was born, the first thing I said was, "Hi, sweetie," and he looked right at me, like literally looked up at me. And then he wasn't breathing. They had to take him to the heart cart, a big scary few minutes. Anyway, then he was fine. And then, but when they were pulling him out, I remember thinking, wow, my daughter has testicles. His knees were up and all I could see was he said, I just thought I was having a girl. Could not have been happier with having a boy, but you know what I mean. You kind of have it in your head what you're going to have. And then the next one was a girl, so I was lucky. Would have kept trying for a girl. Yeah, I know the intrusive thoughts. I know that, but I don't. What I mean is, I don't set myself up as an expert on it. No. So I remember when my son, this is when I first, now I was preparing for motherhood my whole life. I was born to mother. It was just my whole goal in life was to become a mom. And then after my son was born, my mom came out from Canada. We lived in Australia, and my mom came out from Canada, and we went grocery shopping, just my mom and I. And when you're breastfeeding, bleeding, pus, I mean, it was just a nightmare trying to breastfeed, and I was just in pain and torn to shreds down there. I just felt like such a mess. And so my husband, I fed the baby, got him all changed, and then gave him to my husband and said, and he was just a few days old at this point. So I said, great, okay, mom and I are going to go shopping. We'll just be an hour or something. And I remember thinking, oh, thank God, I just get a minute to myself. I remember thinking this. And then we're at the supermarket or wherever we were. And I stopped walking right in the middle of the aisle. My mom said, what's wrong? I guess she thought I was going to pass out or something. And I said, oh, I get it. You never get a break. Like all I could think about was getting home to my baby. That's all I couldn't enjoy myself. I couldn't enjoy the break. All I could think about was getting home to him. That's when it hit me. And here I'd been preparing for motherhood my whole life, but I didn't really get it until you don't really get it till you have a kid. You don't get a break. Like mentally, you are always mom. I'm mom for the rest of my life now. So it's so overwhelming. I remember that. And all I wanted to do was race through the shopping and get home to him. He was fine. We were gone for like 20 minutes. Okay, since I found your behavior board completely changed and now it's getting enjoyable every day. I love that. I love that. So you didn't even hire me. You just got my behavior board. It's free on my website and you just made it work by yourself. Now, don't feel bad if you can't make it work. That's not everybody, but a lot of people are getting a lot of success on their own with that behavior board. It just teaches you how to be a leader. And you've got one behavior board week 1, then you've got 2 of them, and then you've got 3 by week 3. By week 3, if you're not seeing any progress, something's a little bit off, but by week 3, you should start to see some progress, unless you're dealing with some really difficult stuff or teenagers. But yeah, good for you. I'm thrilled to hear that. Thanks for sharing that. I put her in therapy, but the therapist isn't saying much about it, so I don't know. Is this Deanna? Was that the one with the intrusive thoughts? Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I'm not a specialist with that stuff, but I could perhaps assess whether or not you could help her as a parent. But I would never take the place of a therapist. Like if you've got her in therapy and you continue doing that, but if you want to hire me to see how potentially you could help her as the parent, what you could potentially do, I might be able to help you with that. There's no guarantees with any of this. It's just I've helped some parents that have had that issue. But yeah, I don't set high expectations of all this. Certainly something like that, it can be really challenging, but I could give you maybe some ways of dealing with it. Deanna, are you seeing a cognitive behavioral therapist? Yeah. And therapists, there's really good ones and there's really bad ones. You shop around because it's not that they mean to be bad, but it's got to be someone that you connect with and someone that your child connects with too. So it can be a negative experience, but usually they're usually good, but shop around. Usually best to be with someone that other people recommend. Look at the reviews. The reason I'm telling you that is because just because someone has a degree doesn't mean they have a good heart and that they're good at what they do. I always say with any kind of therapist, you're looking for the heart. And the training, yes, but they all have that, but it's the heart that's what you want to look for. I could tell you a story. Never mind. But your ways are so practical and what works. I'm glad it works for you. I'm not for everybody, and I don't pretend to be. It's like I'm gluten-free health food vegan. That's not for everybody either. If it resonates with you, then do it. And if I resonate with you in my parenting advice, then do it. But I always call myself a parenting coach. Some people call me a parenting expert, like, because what else are you going to call yourself, right? A person who knows a little bit about parenting, like, I don't know what to call myself. But I'm sure there's lots of other ways out there. And that's what I'm getting at with the therapist too. You have to meld with that it has to make sense to you. If it doesn't make sense to you, you're not going to follow through and be consistent with it. So, but it has to make sense to you. And there's lots of people out there who hate my guts. You should see them come after me. Anytime I do a video on ignoring tantrums, the hate comes out. I throw those videos out every so often just to make sure I still am shaking things up because, I love all that stuff. It's like, am I still relevant? And then I do a ignore tantrums video and I go, oh, thank God, finally. Okay. Because they get bored with hating you and then they move on and then you do another one of those videos and they come after you. Because I firmly believe that tantrums need to be ignored. That's one thing. I think everyone should be ignoring tantrums. Okay. Is there a book on parent leadership you recommend? I've never read a book on parenting. And I'm the only one who teaches this. Like I invented this calm leadership stuff. So, and I've never read a book on parenting or kids or anything. So I'm self-taught. Kids taught me. I'm not self-taught. Kids taught me. I'm experience-based. But if you're going to take advice from someone on parenting, especially because it's personal and it's just different from anything else, is make sure the person who wrote that book or is giving that advice, they need these 2 criteria. As far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't even listen to them. They have to have finished the job. Have they finished raising their own kids? Have they lived with teenagers? Have they raised young adults? Have they finished the job? That's number 1. Number 2 is they might have just had really easy kids. I got respect when my kids were little. I didn't learn much with them right through the teen years because I got respect when they were little. I worked with hundreds of other kids. They have to have experience with hundreds of other kids with all sorts of challenges and things going on in families. So those are 2 things, tons of experience, and they have to have finished the job with their own kids. Otherwise, how could they write a book on it? It would be like writing a book on investing when you only have $10 in the bank. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I would only take investing advice from someone with millions of dollars in the bank. You get where I'm going with this? It's experience and results based. So. Yeah, I might write a book one day. I'll see. I hate writing though. I'm a talker. I hate writing. I'm no good at it. Every time I try and write and I read it back, I go, that was stupid. I just hate, I'm no good at it. No kids yet, but I watch your videos for future guidance. Excellent. Um, yeah. If someone, and I know I've been approached by ghostwriters, or is that what they're called? People who write for you. I'm just not, I don't have time right now. And believe me, if I put a book out there, it's going to be blood, sweat, and tears put into that book. Once it's out there, it's got to be right. Or it's got to be what I believe, right? Okay. I've been approached by a huge publishing house, and then they approached me. I would love to tell you which one it was. It was unbelievable. Anyway, they approached me, but what they do is they throw out a whole bunch of feelers. And then I guess they got busy with other stuff and they never got back to me. So I only chatted with them once. I was absolutely stunned. So if the huge publishing agent approaches me and they have a ghostwriter, then I could probably get a book out there. But they have to start the ball rolling because it's so not my thing. I wouldn't have a clue how to write a book. Okay, but I do have a course out there. It's all done now, my full course. It goes for 5 weeks and it has group coaching in there too. It went, I would have to say 50% better than I expected. It shocked me. So that went really well. Coaching, I always thought is always going to be up here. The course, even though it has group coaching, is going to be down here. They were amazingly the same. If you don't have any crisis or really difficult they're not for teenagers, it's parents of 3 to 12-year-olds. If you don't have anything really out of the ordinary, it was pretty in line with one-on-one coaching. I was shocked at that. But a lot of parents want the one-on-one, like more the personal attention. But yeah, the course, just the results didn't see that coming at all. So anyway, that's going really well. So if you're interested, just go on my website, bratbusters.com. Okay. Okay, I have a degree in psychology and I agree with Lisa, shop around for a connection. Yeah, you got to connect with that person because you're telling them so it's personal. And a lot of people who have degrees don't have the heart to go with it. I would only want to talk to someone who also has the heart. And people say when I first started my business, because I used to often cry with my clients, I still do when it's crisis work. And they said, well, that's not professional. You never should. And I'm like, oh, shut up. How could I not get involved? How could I not be emotionally, how could I not get emotionally involved with my clients? Because how could you do this job without loving it, without getting emotional with your clients? Like, I just don't get that. And I told that person to shut up. But that would be, but I still give advice. It's not like I'm sobbing and they're consoling me. I'm still, I get tears in my eyes when they're upset sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I think that's what I would want in a therapist too. Someone who is affected by my emotions. I don't want them bawling over it, but you know what I'm saying? I want someone with real heart. That's important to me. It might not be important to you. And it's not important to me with a surgeon. Believe me, I could care less if they have any bedside matter at all. Just cut me open and fix me up. Like when it comes to stuff like that. But when I'm talking about emotions, I want someone who has heart involved in it. I want some of their skin in the game. I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's necessary to me because that's how I run my business too. I got some skin in the game when I'm working with people. They matter to me. So, but anyway, it's just me. Everyone's different. It might not be important to you. Okay, this comes up a lot. Trying to practice ignoring tantrums, but grandparents give in. So if they're not okay, if you're ignoring tantrums at home, and when the child's with the grandparents, you can ask them to try and ignore it. But if those grandparents are looking after your kids for you, I wouldn't tell them anything. Like, this is what I say. When I'm a grandmother, my rule is, when you're around, they're your kids. If you drop those kids off and they're under my care, grandma's rules. You know what I mean? Like, grandma's rules. So, but yeah, if they're looking after your kids, except when it comes to diet and sugar and all that stuff, like I wouldn't do anything like that. Like, you know what I mean? If they said, don't give them any sugar, obviously I wouldn't do that. But when it comes to behavior, it's grandma's rules. So the thing is that what happens is when you get good at this leadership stuff and you learn how to ignore tantrums and do all that, then they are under your umbrella. It doesn't matter what anyone else does. They will eventually just be under your leadership umbrella, and they're not going to act out with anybody else either. It's the way it goes. Past the age of about 3.5 to 4, they're just solidified, cemented by your leadership, and they're respectful of everyone everywhere they go. That's the way it works. My son was in grade 2 and his teacher phoned me on her lunch break to tell me this. I was heavily involved in the school, so they all know me. She goes, Lisa, you won't believe what he said. And I said, what? She said, I said to him, this is my son in grade 2. She said, why are you so nice? And he looked up at her all serious and he said, Mommy makes us be nice. You're darn right. So that was my job. I make my kids be nice. I thought that was so cute. So yeah, the grandparents, if they're looking after your child, but if they're doing it when you're around, I would say, don't undermine my parenting, please. It makes me feel bad. Talk about your feelings. Say, it makes me feel bad. Okay, but when you're babysitting, it's grandparents' rules. It's when we're all together, grandparents. Well, then just say to them, say, can you please not undermine my parenting? It makes me feel bad. It hurts my feelings. Just let me deal with it and just ignore it, please, when I'm around. Okay? So that, if they won't listen to that, I can't really help you. If they can't, like I would never, ever interfere in my kids. You know what I mean? Like that's none of my business when they're their kids. But yeah, they drop them off with grandma. It's my rules. Because I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to put up with anything. Plus, I want to be the fun. I want to be the goofy grandma. That's what I miss, you know. Parenting was the most fun I ever had in my whole life. Just laughing every single day. It was so much fun. I miss that. So now, you know, with grandkids coming, you know, down the road, I'll be goofy again. I'll be able to chase them around the house with underpants on my head and do all that stupid stuff I did with my kids. You know, I don't have friends that really appreciate that. Okay, how to stop all 3 kids fighting in the car ride, ages 4, 7, and 10. This comes up a lot. One of the ones that I did this is not for you, but this was funny. They were fighting, so I had the parents make up a big cardboard partition. They were little ones, they were toddlers, and they were just yelling, throwing stuff. They were horrible. And they put up this cardboard partition between the 2 kids, solved everything. And then they said, well, isn't that just putting a Band-Aid on the problem? And I said, no, because they're going to outgrow it and they'll start to miss each other. So then finally they took it down. They said the kids actually got along. But yeah, 4, 7, and 10, fighting in the car rides. There's so many different ways this could go. But let's say you're just driving them home from school and they're all fighting in the back. I would just pull over. Like this only works if they want to get home, if they want to get somewhere, and you don't have to be somewhere. Say, okay, every time you fight, I'm pulling over for 5 minutes. I would actually get out of the car and just look at my phone and time it for 5 minutes. So they'll get sick of this. You do that every few feet, probably. My kids used to fight. Well, I thought they were fighting. It was funny. I only had 2 kids in the back seat of the car, and I'd say, stop your fighting, and I'd pull over, and I'd just wait for it. Then I'd get back in the car, and they'd be all sad. I realized that's how they said hello. They hadn't seen each other all day, and they'd be smashed up against the doors like this, don't touch, and the other one would be, not touching, not touching, and that's all they were doing. And they were just having a blast, and I put a pin in their balloon. Finally, I said, okay, you can start fighting again. And it was just silly stuff. But yeah, I would just pull over on the side of the road and just get out of the car and just wait for 5 minutes. See how they like that. And then if it's and then people say, but they'd kill each other. Well, then you got bigger fish to fry. It's not just about fighting in the car. You want to hire me and I'll help you sort that out. But yeah, if it's just innocent kind of crazy stuff in the car, they just get on each other's nerves. That's how I would do it. Yeah, if they're killing each other. Someone said, yeah, but then they're going to kill each other. And I thought, well, then it's not just about fighting in the car, is it? You got to work on your leadership skills. Okay, how to discipline an 11-year-old who is, you're going to hate my answer, an 11-year-old who is skipping school and hanging out with older teens. And now how does this 11-year-old have all that freedom? Skipping school, I guess you can't just drive and find them. Like if I found my kid was skipping school, I would smell him out. I would find him. I would have a tracking device on that phone too, for sure. If they have a phone, they'd have a tracking device on it. And if they ever shut it down, I would take it away for the day. So anyway, this is what you're not going to like, is you said how to discipline an 11-year-old. You're not disciplining them. You got to get some management skills in place here. You got to work on your parenting leadership skills. You got to figure out a system, how you're going to manage this, because that's big stuff. If that's happening at 11, where are you going to be at 15 with this kid? So yeah, you might want to hire me for that one. And that would be 5 sessions. If that's a different level of stuff going on. I don't know how that's happening. I'd want to figure that one out. Yeah, you got to get systems in place. You got to really figure out how to manage that one. And is it going to happen in a week? God, no. 3 to 6 months, hopefully. Don't ever hire me for someone else. They don't usually appreciate it, especially if you're a mother-in-law. Just a tip. Okay, how do I get my 6-year-old to clean his room? He completely ignores me when I tell him to clean. Well, why are you telling him to clean? I never told my kids to do anything. They just knew that the rule is you have to clean your room. If you don't, there's no TV or anything goes on until that room is clean. So it's like you got to do what you need to do before you can do what you want to do. They understood that from a really little age, that there was no TV or anything until they got their room cleaned up. Plus, is it manageable? I'm a very organized, clean minimalist. So their room took them under 2 minutes to make their bed, put their toys away, and hang up their laundry. It was literally under 2 minutes. They were 3 when they had to do that. But they knew there was no TV, or they wouldn't even have breakfast until that was done. Like, it was just done, you know? So yeah, get a system in place, make it very doable, and say, well, the rule is, this is your chores. You have to make your bed, whatever you decide it is. That's a 6-year-old. Put it on the behavior board, say, follow the chore chart. And if that chore chart isn't followed, then there's a consequence. The chore chart is a separate thing, but make it easy, make it doable. If that room is cluttered and there's too much stuff in there, that's on you. That's not on them. So you got to clean it all out and have a toy rotation system going. Lots of my clients have said, how do I get my kids to clean their room? I say, well, pick up your computer and walk me into their room and show me their room. And it's just stuff everywhere. And I'm like, you can't ask a child to clean that up. You have to, you get it cleaned up, get it organized, declutter it, get a toy rotation system going, and then you show them how to manage it. And you got to keep going in and sorting things out and getting rid of stuff. But yeah, you got to be organized. Destructive 5-year-old boy is into everything and breaking and destroying. Don't know is he doing it in anger or just for fun? I don't know. Why is he doing that? Again, you might want to hire me, because that's not normal. Like, what I mean is 5-year-olds don't usually do that. There's something going on there. So not that he's not normal. It's just that behavior is not normal. It's not acceptable behavior. So you're obviously got to work on your leadership skills. For fun. Yeah, your leadership skills are lacking. That's all it is. That's all that says to me. You got to work on your leadership skills. There's no way he'd be doing that if you were a calm leader. Just would not happen. What should the consequence be? It's from Hello. I got to go back. Consequence to what? 6-year-old to clean his room. Well, first of all, is it manageable? That's the number one. Is it really easy to do? Is it under 2 minutes just to clean up his room? Put 5 toys away, pull up the duvet, and hang up one outfit. And you see, it's got to be really, really, really doable. And then the consequence could be maybe making your bed for 2 days if he doesn't make his bed. And when I say make his bed, sloppy is fine. I always went in and did the extra, right? Because I'm super fussy. And that's my choice. I didn't want to put that on my kids. I never even really cleaned in front of anyone. I'm a closet cleaner. It's my meditation. I like to clean in my own time. I don't like people to see me clean, except the kitchen when I have people over. That's about it, though. But yeah, make it doable. So a consequence would be he has to make your bed for a couple of days if he doesn't do it. But it's how this is played out, too. It's not just get the behavior board up there and you do it. It's a lot of parents tank by just body language or tone of voice, Well, I told you that if you broke the rule, then you have to do that. You got to watch yourself. A calm leader wouldn't talk like that. You say, okay, you broke the rule, so let's go look at the board. Okay, so let's see now. This is it's body language. It's the way you speak. It's a huge part of it. This comes up a lot in coaching. And not so much on videos. I don't know why I get self-conscious. Every time I do a video on how you act when you're disciplining, I just did one, I think, yesterday on that, but I always get self-conscious. I don't know why. I'm not a self-conscious person. I don't know why, anyway. Teaching patience before kindergarten, you don't. Kindergarten will teach them that. They'll soon learn they can't just race and get up when they want and do what they want. Yeah, they'll learn. You can't teach them patience, not that I know of. Okay, well, this one's such a good one. You're not going to like my answer, but when other kids push or hit my toddler, what should I tell her to do? You mean you want your toddler to manage that? That's not a child's responsibility. When someone hurts your child, that's up to you to protect them. It's not up to them to protect themselves. Okay, so you don't tell her to do anything. You deal with it. You prevent that. I've dropped friends that have. Whenever I had a friend with like nasty kids, I dumped them. I wouldn't have my kids around that. Like, or else if it was just a friend that I saw with the kids, I dumped them. I stopped seeing them. But if it was a friend I had outside of kids and we went out for dinner and that, then I just wouldn't see them with their kids. So I wouldn't expose my kids to that. Patience at home. Well, I don't know what your home life is like. Like, it's a hard one to answer. My kids understood from a really little age. Is it patience or just I'm getting the food ready? And if they had acted out, if they had banged on something waiting for food, like past the age of about probably 3, I guess. I don't remember. But if they had, I would have said no, and I would have very obviously held the food. So I would never have, they would never have got, if they were being impatient and rude about it, they would never have got anything they wanted. There's no way if they were being rude and disrespectful. I want it now. Well, now you're going to have to wait for it. You can ask nicely. So they just learn not patience so much as manners. I think that's a better word. Manners. There you go. So it's not that they were patient, but they had good manners. Like they wanted the food, but they wouldn't have been rude. So I don't know what you mean by patience. Are they rude? Is it about manners? Yeah, that's why I couldn't really figure that out. Amen to that. What did I say? My daughter doesn't usually watch my lives. She's usually at work. But anyways, I did a late one last night, and she was just eating her dinner, so she said she tuned into it, and she said, "You just said something," and then afterwards you said, "What was I just talking?" Well, it was something that was so obvious. Everyone kept telling me, and I was like this. What was it I said I was going to mention? What was? And everyone was. She goes, "It was so frustrating." She felt like yelling. Just look at the freaking screen. I completely forgot the point I was trying to make, but I wasn't looking at if I know better, because you guys will always remind me of what I'm doing wrong or what I forgot. But yeah, I was like this. What was that? Shoot, I just can't remember. And it was like 20 people telling me what it was. That can be so dopey. Lying is, I always say you don't address attitude, but lying is not an attitude, it's a behavior. So you put down no lying on the behavior board. If they're 3, that behavior board doesn't start till they're 3 years old. By the way, just to remind you, my course is out there now. If you have 3 to 12-year-olds, it's a 5-week course, and it's on my website. You can check it out. But the results that parents got I was shocked at that. I was absolutely shocked. They did. I couldn't quite figure out why, because it's group coaching. It's not one-on-one coaching. They get weekly group coaching sessions, but because they saw each other. Also, there wasn't time spent with all the counseling and therapy that a lot of my one-on-one clients want. Because if they're emotionally in turmoil, then there's a lot more, nurturing them, that kind of stuff. Well, in group coaching, that doesn't happen. So all of their efforts was put into parenting, not nurturing their own pain and what they're going through. It was really interesting. So that's why they got pretty much the same results as one-on-one coaching, unless you're dealing with crisis or something more bigger. But yeah, so if you're interested in that, check it out. It's on my website now. You can sign up anytime you want. Okay. Well, my 3-year-old never answered me, no matter how much or how long I called him, not even yelled or threatened. Well, why are you repeating yourself? So you called your 3-year-old. So I don't know where you are. Let's say you're at home and you say, "Come on, we're going to go." And if that kid doesn't like I've already said we're going to be leaving in a few minutes. Okay. So they already know we're leaving. So make sure you're going to be getting your shoes. I kind of prepared my kids for that, kind of groomed them for an outing. So I'd say, okay, we're going to get going or whatever. And then I'd say, okay, come on. And then if they just ignored me, I'd be in there in a shot picking them up. And I would say, I said, we're going. Okay. So if they were rudely ignoring me, there would be a consequence for that. Yeah. But so I don't know exactly what's going on there, but yeah, I would only say it once. I don't repeat myself. No way. As soon as you start repeating yourself, they're in charge and they know it. They lose respect for you. Good question. Do I address tantrums after they are done? I'm going to do a video on that. Here's my answer. Why would you? What's the point? You're giving it attention. Why would you? Absolutely no point. Yeah, I would never talk about a tantrum before, during, or after. Nope. Like I said, I told that story about my son in the mall. He was 3 years old. It was the second to last tantrum. And when he was done, I'd been filing my nails waiting because you're modeling calm behavior. And he knew me. It wasn't going to last long. He was getting out of them. And so anyway, as soon as he was finished, I said, oh, you all done? Okay, let's go. I would never mention that. Never. It's like it's beneath me. I'm a leader. I don't enter the crazy zone. I don't discuss it. I don't enter it. Yeah, I ignore the crazy. I reward the calm. That's why I said, oh, y'all done? Okay, let's go. And that was it. I don't like to dwell in the negative either. Why would you? Oh, I know. I'm going to tell you the swing story. It's one of my favorites. It explains why you don't do that. It's actually my second favorite story. My favorite story is the pool story, but the swing story is almost as good. Okay, so it's a true story. They both are. True story. My son was 2 years old. I took him to the park and there was another mom there. It was just the four of us, another mom there with her 2-year-old boy. And I kind of had seen her around, but we'd never been introduced, never met each other. So I think she was new in the neighborhood. So anyway, so we're like, hi, how are you? Hi, I'm Lisa, whatever. So then there was 2 swings, 2 moms, 2 2-year-old boys. So we're talking to each other as we're putting our sons in the swings. And so we put them on the swing. And then they both pointed to the other swing. They wanted the other one. So we're like, well, who cares? We're chatting away. So we went to switch them. They both went into a full-blown tantrum, both of them, exact same time. It was like self-destructive instantly. There were 2 benches too. And so we each took our little boy to a bench. Now my son went to run back for the swing. So I put my arm out and just stopped him. And then I didn't have to keep my arm there. He knew, right? When it's like, oh, okay, mom knows. So anyway, I stopped him from running back and then that was it. And then I'm just looking at the trees, waiting out. I'm modeling calm behavior. I am just waiting for him to finish. Now he knew me at this point. It wasn't a real bad he had worse tantrums than that. It wasn't a horrible one, but it was a tantrum. Anyway, so he just kind of petered out and because he wanted back on that swing. He knew as soon as he stopped tantruming, he'd get back on that swing, right? So he knew that I was going to reward good behavior. Anyway, so I'm ignoring him. And then when he stops, I said, okay, y'all done. Let's go back on the swing. He only had like maybe a 2-minute tantrum. It wasn't a long one at all. And so he's back on the swing, having a great time. In the meantime, this is the other mom. Now and this kid's screaming, getting worse and worse and worse. And she doesn't figure out what she's doing wrong. She just didn't know, right? So anyway, she's saying, now, you could have been on the other swing. Now calm down. And she's talking to him. He's getting more and more upset because she's feeding it. I'd stayed on the calm high road waiting for my son to join me. She's in the mess. She's on the low crazy road, just in the mess with him. Anyway, it went on for about 20 minutes. Then as soon as he finished, he had the hiccup cry. He's all done with his tantrum. Then she discusses everything that just happened. Now, you shouldn't have done that. Mommy said, give me a hug. I love you. You love me. Okay, do you want to go back on the swing? This kid was miserable. She dragged out that tantrum by entering that zone with him. Then she wanted to discuss it. That kid had a miserable time. Let's drag it all out and make you feel even more like crap. So this poor kid, 30 minutes later, my kid's tired of swinging. We go home. Her kid, I guess they went home too. They were both just wrung out. Now, what did she do wrong? Pretty much everything. Everything. She went in that crazy zone, dragged it out. And then afterwards, she kept dragging out all the negative. Where was the reward for stopping the tantrum? Once the tantrum's over, where's the reward? He just got berated by everything he did wrong. It was just awful. It was such a mess. And I thought that poor kid, my kid was having a great time. I thought that poor kid, that's why you don't drag them through the mud. Just ignore it. They're done. It's all done. Okay, all done. Let's go on the swing now. I reward the calm. I ignore the crazy. And they learn from a really young age. They learn really quickly. Hey, wait a minute. If I'm calm, I might get on that swing. See, I don't say anything. You're talking about the mini therapy sessions. God, I hate those things. Let's discuss all your big feelings and big emotions. That's what that poor kid was going through. Oh, it was awful. Mini therapy sessions. Those are for the mom. They are not for the kid. They are horrible. They're garbage. Okay, I gotta go. Oh, I've been on here. Oh, I've been on here for an hour and 20 minutes. Whew, I got a client soon. Almost missed. I wouldn't have missed it because I have an alarm on my phone, but I've got something I have to do first. Just a second. Oh, what time? Oh, shoot. My alarm didn't go off. I don't think I would have missed it though because I have it right on the board. Whew, I've never missed a client appointment. Oh, no, it's for 2:30. Okay. Oh, scared me. It's only 1:39. I thought, why did my alarm? I always put alarms on when if they're not back-to-back appointments, I always have an alarm going. Anyway, I got to go. Thanks so much for watching. You can go on my website. My new course is out there now. It's on the courses area there. And you can get my free behavior board, or you can hire me for private one-on-one coaching. Everything's done on Zoom. So you can be anywhere in the world. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. And I have to get going now. So we'll talk again tomorrow. I'm here every day. So we'll talk again tomorrow. Bye now.